Hello, good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening and good night, wherever you are on planet Earth. It's been a while since I've done a video. I'd just like to start with a few things that are going on in the world. So, the Three Gorges Dam, right now in some parts of China, they've had over half a metre of rain. It's like 500 mils. And the Three Gorges Dam is pretty much full and would be overflowing the top if it wasn't for them having all the gates open. But even so, it's wanting to over the top. And I dare say that right now it must be monitored to see if anything spectacular happens with the Three Gorges Dam, given it's been a topic of discussion over the last 3 to 4 years about that being a significant event that needs to take place in order for some of these grand changes and shifts to occur for humanity beyond the jurisdiction of separate nations. I'm just going to read out something from here in reference to that. So, the event is the collapse of the Three Gorges, the event of the collapse of the Three Gorges Dam needs to be explained, as there are still many who do not understand the ramifications of what this means when this event finally takes place. And it could be taking place imminently. Not 100% certain on that, but right now it could be the opportunity for this to happen now. There's lots of things potentially happening this month, especially after mid-August or in the 20s. Movements with gold and silver, apparently. So the recommendation, if you don't already have, if you haven't gone and done that, if you haven't gone and got your gold and silver, and you haven't acted on that yet and you're procrastinating, but that's part of your plan, be it prepping or just part of a longer strategy, for reference, I would be doing that immediately in case the price moves up from where it's sort of been sitting quite dramatically. So now might be the time. So, the event of the collapse of Three Gorges Dam needs to be explained, as there are still many who do not understand the ramifications of what this means when this event finally takes place. We take out the 24 nuclear reactors for Gasara. We take out the Bitcoin mining and destroy the deep state toll used for the CHILD trafficking. We get the QFS, the quantum financial system. We take out big PHARMA and we get the CURES, MEDBEDS, all the above. Goodbye to the C that P. It is necessary to realize that everything is connected to the Three Gorges Dam collapsing. This is the event. This is how General Flynn and JULIANASSANGE are freed. The more people understand that nothing is going to happen until the dam collapses, the better our near future looks exciting. Our life that will be fulfilled with CURES and abundance is all about the event of the dam collapsing. Please share so more people understand the prominence of the dam collapse. Now I'm going to make some reference to Benjamin Fulford, as he had some pretty interesting information here. So I'm just going to read. There's some dark people on this planet that actually plan for there to only be approximately 1 to 5 million people alive on the planet by the end of 2025. That's crazy stuff. I don't think they're going to achieve that. But there's people that are actually processing this sort of stuff. It's crazy. Okay, so Benjamin Fulford, a bit of information that he's put out, and I'm just going to reference some of that. So his involvement in certain things started. He started as a journalist. He had been exposing a group that was systematically murdering Japanese politicians, industrialists, and government officials. The forensic investigative trail led to certain elitist families and members. And by exposing these people in a way that could be used against them in a court of law, and so he opened up Pandora's box. The first secret group that contacted him was sent by Henry Kiss Inger via former Japanese Finance Minister Heizo Takenaka. The envoy they sent, a self-described assassin, said he represented the elders of Zion. He told him, it's on tape, that they needed to kill 90% of the world's population through DISEASE and starvation in order to save the environment. His group offered him great wealth and the position of finance minister of Japan if he agreed to go along with the plans. They also told him that he'd be killed if he continued exposing them. This is the group he refers to as the KHAZARIANMAFIA. The ringleaders, known as the SWISS-based Octagon GROUP, and include the ROTHSCHILD and ROCKEFELLER families, as well as various royal families of Europe. The second secret group to contact him was the Red and Blue. They claim to have originated in the Warring States period of China around 400 BC. In their latest incarnation, they fought to overthrow the Manchu Qing dynasty and restore the Ming dynasty. They claim to have over 6 million members, a lot more now, including 100,000 assassins. They said their society could only be used for the greater good and not for personal benefit. He chose to join them in a battle against the KHAZARIANS. This is what was reported about them at the time. They told him their society would only be used for the greater good and not for personal benefit. Their book of rules reads like a book of ethics, filled with instructions to do things like help the weak, fight injustices, help your comrades, etc. They approached him and asked if they could help after he made a speech in Tokyo describing the Bush regime's use of race-specific biological weapons. For him, it was like a ghost from the history books appearing right in front of him. At first, he thought of silly things like having them play N-I-N-E, O-N-E, O-N-E. Well, that's no good. The light's just gone out. That'll be fine. With videos in Chinatowns around the world, however, then he remembered that the scene from the movie Kill Bill where Uma Thurman snatches out her opponents. I soon realised these people could save the world by directly attacking the eye at the top. On the money signature. So he handed them a list of 10,000 people associated with those groups. And so, by threatening these people at the time, this group was able to successfully stop a genocide plan for 2012. The third group to contact him was the US Mill Industrial Complex. They sent Paul Lane, a former member of the Pentagon's Psychic Warfare Unit. He also claimed to be with the CI and the letter A. Lane provided him with lots of esoteric information. He pointed out the US space program had been stopped dead in its tracks by some unknown force. He also provided evidence this planet had been nearly destroyed before. This group agreed with red and blue goal of preventing World War III because all the Pentagon war games showed that such a war would destroy 90% of humanity and leave the northern hemisphere of the planet unfit for human habitation. Also belonging to the third group are people who identify themselves as the secret space program. The main point of contact with them is a relative of Admiral Richard Byrd of the Antarctic exploration. They claim they have already colonized many nearby solar systems and say they have returned to Earth to help what they call the surface population. He promises that he will be able to visit and report on SSP facilities at the Thule Air Base in Greenland and in Antarctica. So far this has not happened, but he keeps hoping that it will happen soon. The fourth group to contact him was the family, often referred to as the ROTHSCHILDS. The group is the European royal bloodline that includes the Saxe-Gotha family, the Habsburgs and other European royal bloodlines, moderate factions. This is a group behind the so-called GLOBALWARMING campaign. This campaign, while based on fraud, was presented by them as a way of saving environment without genocide. Scottish Rite Freemasonry reports ultimately to this group. They also control the Committee of 300. Queen Elizabeth II was the leader of this group until she was recently finished. We started a they started a correspondence via handwritten letters and then switched to secure digital communications via the MI6. The new head is still in contact with him and can confirm it is not King Charles. The former representatives, Dr. Michael van de Meer, aka Mering, referred to the people behind the plan genocide as the JEWS. Further research revealed it was the Satan, Baal, Molech, Set, etc., worshipping non-JEWISH leadership, historically known as the Hyksos, HYKSOS, who were the problem. To avoid confessing with the JEWS, he began referring to them as the KHAZARIAN Mafia. This is also common knowledge, but it was not when the research started. They had their own secret society. The story they tell is that when the JEWS were defeated by Babylon, all the male heirs to King David were killed. The secret police who promoted King David decided to preserve his bloodline by protecting female descendants. Since King Solomon married a pharaoh's daughter, it also means they protected pharaonic descendants. This is where the JEWISH thing about you can only be JEWISH if your mother is and comes from. Over the years, they intermarried into various royal aristocratic families of the world. They advertised their descent from David by using the Lion of Judah as their symbol. This is the bigger family the ROTHSCHILDS would like to be kings of. It may well be that many of the true ones descended from David, or it may just be a cultural tradition. It would be a good subject to research using modern genetic technology. The fifth group to contact him was the Gnostic Illumi, you know the rest of that word. The representative, self-described Grandmaster Alexander Romanov, aka Richard Sorge, Sasha Zarek, Gordon Moore, said the group was behind Russian, French and American revolutions. They are opposed to the bloodline rule. This group also warned him in advance of the planned 311 nuclear and tsunami terror attack against Japan. Romanov claimed he has been recruited by former chess champion Bobby Fischer. It was Romanov who first mentioned ISIS long before it appeared in the news. Romanov is now believed to be heading anti-KM operations in Australia. The sixth group to make contact was the P2 Free Mace Lodge, who sent Leo Zagimi to visit him in Japan. The group also calls themselves Illum and claims to control the VAT and the MAF. Their leaders claim to be the descendants of the Roman Caesars. When he visited the P2 Lodge in Italy, it was introduced to generals, journalists, politicians, etc. The highest ranking P2 member he met was Vincenzo Mazzara, a cavalier of the Teutonic Knights. The group worships the Black Sun and claims they were behind communism and other big political movements. They displayed their power by removing Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi and Pope Benedict Maledict from office. They now call themselves the P3 and claim to have split with Zagami. Zagami is in self-imposed exile in Palm Springs, California, to avoid being arrested in Italy. The P3 leaders say that because they are all in their 80s, they are handing control over to Elon Musk. Okay. The 7 group he ran into was the Dragon family. The 7th group was the Dragon family. He was inducted into this group after meeting their representatives in Singapore. The Roth group representative said that if you want to talk to China, this is as high as it goes. When they arranged the introduction, the group claims to be composed of various Asian royal bloodlines. This includes the Tang, Li, Song, Sun, Ming, Zhou, Manchu, Yi dynastic bloodlines. They also claim to have ET extraterrestrial backers. They have legitimate historical claims to most of the world's gold. The 8th group that approached him was the Black Dragon Society, although several groups claim this title at present. Chidoin Daikaku, head of the world's Japanese martial arts societies, karate, ninjutsu, aikido, etc., with over 50 million practitioners around the world, seems to represent them best. The 9th powerful group that made contact with Benjamin Fulford was the Hong Men, with 55 million members, mostly located in China and in Asian communities around the world. Chinese President Xi Jinping is a member of this group. It can be seen as a sort of combination between a chamber of commerce and a gangster group. This sort of thing, by the way, is true of Western secret societies too, because welding big money and big power requires protection. The Hong Men are closely linked to, but not the same as, the Chinese Communist Party. Their hierarchy is based on meritocracy and not bloodlines. The Chinese Communist Party, which Youth League, or the meritocratic party of the Chinese government, can be seen as the Hongmen stronghold. Their agent in Japan, Mr. K, is a major conduit that he has for contact with the Chinese authorities. According to the mythological origins reported by the affiliate Calvin Beckham Chow, the sect originated during the reign of Emperor Kangxi, 1654 to 1722. Other studies report the 60s of the 18th century as the most likely period. A 10th group to contact him is the Yatagarasu, or Three-Legged Crow Secret Society. This group says they founded the Shinto religion after a three-legged crow led them to Japan in ancient times. The members of Yatagarasu claim to be descendants from the ancient lost Israeli tribe of Ephraim, as well as from members of the priestly tribe of Levi. They claim they can recite their ancestry back over 100 generations to the biblical Jacob in Egypt. It is interesting in this context to note Shinto is very similar to ancient Egyptian religion, featuring worship of the sun god and the annual parading of shrines. The Japanese imperial family is intimately connected to his group, and members of this family also claim to be descended from the pharaohs of Egypt. The mysterious Octagon group in Switzerland also claims ancient Egyptian origins. However, the Yatagarasu say they split from the Octagon people 3,000 years ago. Yatagarasu is seen as the messenger of gods. Why three legs? Kumano's priests confess that no one really knows, but told us they may represent the three ancient clans that dominated Kumano's history, or perhaps the three main virtues of the gods: Chi, wisdom; Jin, benevolence; and Yu, valor. And again, the three legs may stand for heaven, earth, and mankind, as it is the Taoist triad. Why is the crow often seen as the evil omen? Kumano's symbol and protector legend points to the crow's skill as a navigator, always able to find a way to unknown lands. Yatagasaru was said to have guided an emperor who had lost his way to the place. A sign at the shrine notes that the Japanese Soccer Association has adopted the crow as its mascot to make sure the ball finds its way into the goal. Helping those who are lost to find a path is the essence. There are many other groups that also made contact, including the French Grand Lodge de l'Orient Masons, the Inagawa Ninkyo Yakuza group, the Sumiyoshi Ninkyo group, the Yamaguchi Gumi Ninko group, the Assassins, Persia, the Nigerian mob, the Mughal dynasty of India, the Indonesian royal family, the Thai royal family, British MI5 and MI6 intelligence, the Rosicrucians, BIS/Red Cross, the Soka Gakkai Buddhist group, etc., etc. When the Red and Blue asked him to find benevolent Western secret societies, the above of some of what he encountered: an informal network containing members of all the above groups has now been formed and is called the White Dragon Society. Like the Red and Blue, the WDS can only be used for the greater good and not personal benefit. So far, the WS and its allies have stopped all KM attempts in igniting World War III, creating PANDEMICS and causing widespread starvation. However, it has been 16 years since the WDS began to do battle, and the recent KM PLANDEMIC Mass VAC, you can get it, program, and WAR in Ukraine makes it clear we still have not defeated them. What we have found out is that KM control grid was far more extensive and powerful than we imagined. This does not mean they are not on the ropes, though. When the battle started, there was literally only one sentence in the entire internet about the Roth family. The phrase KHAZMAFIA did not exist. Now the existence of secret inbred elite in charge of the financial system is common knowledge. The KM required secrecy to stay in power, and they have lost that entirely. The rise of BRICS, nations. And Shanghai Cooperation Organization means the KM control grid is now down to the US, Canada, and Western Europe. This means they can only control 11% of the world's population and 27% of GDP. Their big 2020 PLANDEMIC and the VAC, push failed in its aim to kill a large percentage of the world's POP. They face lawsuits, mass demonstrations, and systematic attacks on their power in the countries they still control. Their so-called leaders like US President Joe, Canadian CRIME Minister Justin Castro Castrodou, the French President Emmanuel Macron, and German President Olaf Scholz cannot appear in public without immediately being attacked by a mob. The bottom line of all these secret societies that, unlike open societies, they require secrecy from the majority of the people in order to be able to wield their power effectively. Now that they are being exposed, their ability to manipulate us is ending. This is especially true of the West. That is why the phrase, "the truth shall set you free," is so important in these troubled times. For this reason, we'll continue providing truth to our readers until we are really free. I think that's the end of the article. Anyway, I'll leave that bit there. Yeah, but there's lots of slow progressive changes. And historically speaking, when we've had such high intensity of war, there's always been a shift and change in the operation of the financial systems. It happened in World War One. I can't remember the exact schematics of what that was, but the people of those generations were doing things a certain way and society operated a certain way. And then World War One was on, and then basically during it, after it, the way it operated, there was a change in the system, change through governments and through banking and so on. And again, with the situation of World War II. And so here we are with this stagnating situation where you have oligarchs in the West, and you have oligarchs that are inside Russia and China and so on, that are obviously not of the same families, and yet it is the common people that come together and go to war with each other. But on the bigger level, it's one set of oligarchs trying to gang up on a set of other oligarchs and take them out and take control and the power, because with the way everything's going digital, and we're soon to come into the World Wide Web 3, and with artificial intelligence, digital currency, digitalization of our international passports, licenses and everything, pushing the whole microchip, and then you have the superconductor microprocessor factories in Taiwan controlled by the US. They are trying to set up replica factories in southern US to continue that process, because the China they cannot replicate that technology, and they can't. It's so protected, they can't really steal it. It's like, even you may have heard about the ballpoint pen situation. So in up until 2017, China may have factories for pens where they made the outside cover and the ink thing, but it was the very cone at the end with a little ball in all the pens around the world. There's a tiny ball that it took engineers somewhere in the West, wherever it was, to develop that technology, and it took China took it on with their engineers without having access to borrowing the machines. They had to basically work it out, and it took them 5 years to perfect the ballpoint pen, so that they didn't have to import that part of their pens in their mass factories of producing ink pens. So there's a bit of trivia for you in that regard. So right now we have so many countries abandoning the US dollar, which is also the US petrodollar. So you had President Nixon in 1971, 2 years before I was born, really. They decided that all oil and gas and so on to be traded, doesn't matter what country you are, you have to trade into the US dollar first before then bridging out onto another currency. So it was sort of a Ponzi scheme. It's always been a Ponzi scheme, really. It's just a rule that has been, and no one's really said, why is that? Everyone just accepts it. You could say it's basically, I guess if America dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and they finished the war and changed the course of history of where it might have gone if they didn't do that, then they deserve to be the world police, and they can basically decide that all oil and gas can be traded through because they saved the world, and blah blah blah. You could surmise it like that if you want to, but the fact is that any country that basically gave the finger to the US financial criminal system and started trading their own resources and commodities with other nations directly without going through the US petrodollar. Usually the US military was sent, their Navy ships were sent there, threats were made. The CIA sent their agents over to destabilize and, kill, threaten families, corrupt, put puppet politicians in and put demonstrators up and basically take out those countries from the inside out and topple the leader and assassinate them. It happened to so many, including Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, all of those people that we used and that were on the paybooks of the CIA and stuff like that, like Bin Laden and everyone. So in recent times, since about 2011, I think China and Russia got together and they decided that they were going to start selling off to the rest of the world outside of their country, get rid of all their US dollars. So this is a long-term strategy, what they're doing here, and they're part of the BRICS alliance, which now 42 countries are involved in now. And if you look at the populations of all those countries, it far outnumbers the population numbers of all NATO. I don't think people understand that. It's like our Western media is so focused that we're the Western media and we're the most important thing because we represent the democratic world of righteousness, and therefore we're morally and ethically the correct default, and anyone else that's not that is questionable about their integrity or level of consciousness, because they're not part of this collective. So you can see the whole propaganda of all that right there too, because it's just a setting that we're all programmed into. So when people turn on the TV and they see the news and they're watching a certain Western news broadcast, they're actually like going straight in, and there's no critical evaluation there. It's just simply, I'm accepting this because I'm trusting this because I've been taught that this is what I trust. So getting back to China and Russia and that part, so since about 2011 or 12, they've been selling off all their US dollars and buying up gold. And they're planning to bring out a gold-backed digital currency, but preceding that, any country that joins will be able to basically do a free trade directly from their currency to it. And so you got China, Russia, India, now Saudi Arabia, because they've just abandoned the US and they've now joined up with China and Russia, South Africa, India. There's a whole heap of countries, Venezuela, Cuba, obviously. Brazil, the numbers keep growing. I even believe that there's been communications within Australia's ranks at the high levels on the quiet that there is the due process of a change of guard in that we are shifting into a new system, and people in leadership within Australia have basically been debriefed of how to navigate and conduct good interaction and servitude to new partners, moving away from the traditional ones, because it's all about to change. And part of that USS Canberra coming to visit Australia was a symbolic part of that on some level, because it wasn't just a US warship, it was it had the Canberra on it. So I think there's something going on there with the white hats group. So right now, all this stuff that's going on with Trump, looking like he could land in prison, and he may well serve a bit in time in prison. But when you think about how things happen, maybe that's part of the plan. And maybe it's planned that he has to go there because, and then certain things will come out, and then it will look bad that he's there, because, maybe he has to go in there for then certain disclosure of certain truths that has yet to come out to be absorbed by the population, to become a reality, to know certain information that's going to make that look really, really bad and unprofessional and embarrassing. And I'd say he would then be released based on evidence of fraudulent mafia stigmatizing attack and so on. And that's going to come out Julian Assange style. And he probably will become the prime minister the president of the US in 2024. And you've got FedNow, which is this new digital system in America with the federal, replacing the Federal Reserve or whatever. And so you're going to have all these families and all these corrupt people doing their business through the FedNow system. And so all of this is going to be logged on the system. And so if Trump was indeed to then come back into power, and then he took control of that, and then he was to audit that, then a lot of people captured by their activities, it's evident on the digital FedNow system, and then they're arrested. So I believe that the FedNow system could be a fishnet strategy that's been put in place to catch all this money laundering type activity. And then you've got the quantum financial system, and you've got the BRICS, and this is these different groups. And so it's about who's going to control the planet financially and so on. Who's going to, which reality, what future timeline is the planet actually going to go on? Is it going to go into this real dark, negative, George Orwellian sort of communist sort of like North Korean sort of nightmare, a digital dystopian, utopian prison where you're free but you're not free? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes, because either way, there may be certain changes. You know, I walk down the streets of cities now and I scan it, and I'm trying to see it ahead in like 40 years, and I'm trying to connect to the existence of a future reality that may be, say, 40, 50 years or even 100 years from now. And I'm trying to see the layout and what's changed, what buildings have been demolished, what's happening there. And what I have started, because I keep practicing this all the time, God forsake me, and I'm starting to receive little tidbits of information. In some cases, I see that cars at some streets and some areas, especially around shopping centres and so on, are completely vacated of cars, and then they've turned the streets into friendly people areas where people can congregate and so on. There was something going on there with some train lines that are current, are still existent 50 to 100 years in the future, but they have upgraded them to a more futuristic technology that doesn't involve squeaky, rattly metal on metal tracks. But in some other cases, they've been ripped up, and if they've kept suburbia around it, they've turned them into parks and walkways and places for exercise and everything else as well. So anyway, yeah, just stuff like that. Just seeing like what sort of world are people going to be living in 50 to 100 years? What rules are going to apply? Will people still be able to jump in their car and just say, hey, let's jump in the car and drive all the way from Melbourne to Brisbane or Los Angeles to New York. Let's do a road trip. Or all these hoops of legislation that you have to go through in order to do that based on whatever the technology is. Will people have their own vehicles? Will people own their own individual vehicles? Will they all be electric? Will they be hybrid, or will they be something new again, hydrogen? Well, is the whole electric cars that some are catching on fire, will that is that just a temporary stepping stone onto the next thing, which also could be back engineered extraterrestrial technology as well, because obviously there's all these patents and all that is actually a real thing that's been done. There's no doubt about that. For those who haven't done the research, you might say, now, Tim, I'll believe then what the mainstream scientists say, that yes, there's, and without a doubt, there has to be life out there and statistically in the universe based on the count of the number of stars and galaxies and blah, blah, blah. But they've already been here, and there's some sort of trade, or they've shot down their craft and they've been back engineering them for the last 50 to 80 years. No way, I cannot accept that. Show me the proof of that. Show me, prove it. Well, it's a matter of putting the time in, and delving in, and then you have to go through a heap of hoops of being able to get past your own limitations and barriers to order accept that. So the difference between myself and someone else who cannot accept that is they haven't stepped through those hoops. But from their perspective, before stepping over the hoops of being totally in a space of, you know, logic and facts, you know, proven scientific facts and credibility, they're not going to be able to do that very well.